Bro, how you get a new pimple on top of your own pimple? What kind of messed up shit is that? Also, I bought a goddamn rug. That counts as furniture, right? Alright, finally the video that all the little kids have been asking for. How to draw eyes. And I know what you want to see, some goofy step-by-step tutorial that you can follow and then draw a realistic eye on the side of all your textbooks and then complain that you can't draw the other one like a little bitch. Well, too bad, because you're not getting that. I mean, you can still be a little bitch though. And since you already know that my second name is motherfucking structure, today I'm gonna talk about the structure of the eye and how to learn that shit. So I'm gonna cover all the different angles and I'm gonna show you all the planes that you need to know. And first of all, I get really fucking triggered when people only show you how to draw one eye. Well, thank you. That's gonna be really useful the next time I try to draw a cyclope. And the biggest mistake that people do when it comes to eyes is they try to draw an eye individually without anything else around it. Like that would be like you trying to learn basketball and you practice throwing balls but without any baskets around you. Like, what are you throwing that ball at? So the eye belongs to this thing that I call the eye area. And it has this sort of shape, like a fifth square or whatever the fuck it's called. And when I start drawing the eyes, I always start out with the eye shape for both eyes like this. Then I think about the nose shape and then the actual eyeballs inside. Then on top, you actually have the eyebrow shape and you have to think about exactly where is it going to make a turn on the forehead. So I'm really looking for that corner of the eyebrow because that shows you the corner of the face itself. And then I start thinking about the actual planes of the eyebrows, and there are gonna be three different ones. 1, 2, 3. That actually looks like some weird fucking Power Ranger. So one in here, the second, and then the third, and then same on the other side. And then after I have all of this, I start thinking about what you call the eye. And really the eye is going to be made out of a top eyelid and a bottom eyelid. And the top eyelid is again 1, 2, 3, while the bottom one is only 2 different straight lines. So when I go to draw it, I don't just draw a curve, but I actually draw these 3 separate planes for the eyelid. And then the tear duct where you cry like a little bitch. And also make sure that you always draw both eyes at the same time. So whatever you do on the first one, do on the second. 1, 2, 3, and it's wrapping around the eyeball. A lot of people wait until they finish with the first to start the second, and then they wonder why it's so fucking hard. Well, what did you expect? Then after the top eyelid, I start positioning the iris because that's gonna be really much more important than the bottom eyelid because it's gonna show you where the person is looking. And again, make sure that you actually draw them both at the same time so you can really make sure that they face the same direction. And with the iris, it's very important that you actually show a lot more of the bottom part than you show on the top. Because if you draw it right in the center, you're actually gonna end up with like a surprised eye. Who's touching my butt right now? But if you actually push it way up to the top, you're actually gonna end up with a drug addict. So find the perfect balance, which is kind of like flat on the top and just barely touching on the bottom. And again, draw them at the same time. Don't focus purely on one. That's what happened with Hansel and Gretel. I think I'm mistaking the story. And then after you have all the planes and the top eyelid and your character doesn't have a lazy eye, you can finally draw the bottom eyelid. But again, make sure that you actually draw the eyes with straight lines because that way you can really measure out the proportions of this line to this line. If you just draw a curve, there's no fucking measuring that shit. Then you draw the upper eyelid, which is usually going to be the same shape as the top eyelid, but again, make sure that you look at the reference. I swear this art shit is really like a test and you already have the answers in here. But people are like, no, that's cheating. I'm gonna make up my own answers. Yeah, well, good luck with working at McDonald's then. One thing you have to avoid is really drawing this bottom eyelid over here. A lot of people draw it because they think it's detailed and they're like, wow, look at how cool it looks. Well, it doesn't. You have to realize that beauty actually doesn't come from detail. Like all these fucking artists drawing realistic eyes on Instagram and people think that that's what you're supposed to do. You're trying to study and break down the planes so you can understand how to draw an eye. It's not about you just following some steps to get a pretty eye drawing. If you look at Laurie's work, she doesn't necessarily have a lot of detail. If anything, her work actually looks kind of soft, but she knows exactly where to put those hard edges to really exaggerate the form. But again, you can't really do that unless you study all of this mechanical fucking shit. So instead of drawing that bottom plane, I actually just leave some space between the iris and the bottom eyelid. So no details and just trying to keep it really simple. Now the second example is with the eyes looking away. And actually what happens is when that eyeball moves, the iris is gonna push on that eyelid and it's gonna change the whole form of the eye. So instead of the normal 1, 2, 3 eyelids, which are gonna be pretty much the same size, this thing is gonna move and this plane over here is gonna be much bigger than this one. And again, you have to be measuring these lines by the reference and really paying attention to their proportions. If you don't do that, when you change your eyes, you're purely relying on the iris. And that's not really much. And that kind of looks like an emoji. Then we have the 3/4 view. And I said I don't really draw this top and bottom eyelid, but if it actually helps the form, then I'll draw it. But just make sure that it's not because you're flexing with your details. So I start out with that eye area, then I have the nose shape, then I break it down into 2 separate eye areas, and then I think about the eyeball. And even though you have the nose right here, it's still really important to draw the whole eyeball so you can really imagine it in 3D space and not just 2D flat form. Then you draw the separate planes, 1, 2, 3, and then that creates this really important plane right here. This is where somebody points a gun at you. Actually, I totally forgot about the eyebrows. Great, he has a gun at his head, but he doesn't have eyebrows. And for the shape of the eyebrows, I just separate it into 2 different planes. One is gonna be like this rectangle, and then you have a triangle at the end. And again, it's really important to find that corner of the eyebrow because that's really gonna show you the whole other side of the head. You can kind of imagine that there's a piercing here. I mean, that doesn't really help, but it makes him hot as fuck. And then the direction of the hair is actually gonna be going up at first, and then it's gonna be going down as it goes to the end, at which point it actually goes the other direction. So in order to draw a good eyebrow, you need to have a good shape, and then you need to think about the direction of the actual hair, but without actually drawing all of it, because then it just looks like grass. And then after you have all of those planes, you think about how the top eyelid is going to be wrapping around the bow. And I'll actually start out of the bow, and then I'll just do 1 line, and then I'll actually combine these 2 lines into just 1 curve. So you have a bow, 1 line, and then another curve. And actually you can kind of see how in here, the eyeball is gonna be sticking out, and that is really showing you this plane over here, which is gonna show you that the eye actually has some form and it's not just some anime eye. And same for the other side. I'll start out with the eyelid and then go up and then a curve, which is gonna be a combination between the 2 lines, and then have the iris in here. And actually, let me show you the solution for the lazy eye. A lot of people just draw one eye facing this direction, the other one facing that, and it always looks like this. So what you do is you pay attention to the proportion between the white part of the eye and the iris. And because this is 3/4 and there's gonna be perspective involved, the other eye is actually gonna be way smaller than this one, so size doesn't matter. I mean, it does, but not in this case. What matters is how big is this space compared to this space. So if this is 60/40, then on the opposite side, it still needs to be 60/40. I mean, of course, you have the nose, so you have to think about how the eye is gonna be behind the nose. Then we have 3/4 looking away, and that's pretty much gonna be the same as 3/4, but just the iris is going to be facing in a different way, but make sure that it's actually the same direction. And over here, there's actually a plane that I didn't talk about. So you have 1, 2, 3, and then there's a 4th one, which is really going to be the connection between the the eye area and the bridge of the nose. But first you think about these 3 ones, and then when you have everything, you think about the 4th one, which is gonna have this type of shape. Then we have this angle, which I'm not really sure what it's called, 5th, 6th, or whatever the fuck. And this is a pretty hard angle, but you just have to think about the eyeball, even though you don't see it, and how the eyelid is going to be wrapping around. And then over here you have this bottom plane, which is going to be showing a lot more. And also make sure that you pay attention to exactly how much of that eye is showing. Like I see a lot of people draw this one eye like this, and then they draw the other one exactly the same. Like if you look at it, it's just peeping around the corner. It's just kind of like, hey, you got something for me? Like it doesn't want the whole dick. Then we have the profile view, and people really overcomplicate this shit, but I swear it's just easy as fuck. So I start out with that eye area, the nose, the eyeball, eyebrow on top, and then the 3 planes. Okay, I guess it's not that easy. And then on top of the eyeball, you just have a straight line coming out, and then there's a curve going back. And just a little bit of that bottom plane showing. And the iris is gonna be this really tall oval like this. And then after that, I might draw like a little bit of an eyelash, but don't overcomplicate that shit. Like just keep it simple with just one triangle. Don't draw all these fucking weird shit. And then for the bottom eyelid, I do a curvature like this, and then I go back. I throw it back. And one thing that people get confused by, I mean, besides my random twerking, is this plane right here. So this right here is actually the eyeball. This isn't. This right here is just the eyelid, and it's just like a small piece of meat hanging around. You definitely know what I'm talking about if you're not circumcised. But I shouldn't stop you from drawing the 3 different planes. 1, 2, 3. And later on, when you get to shading, you can actually show this form, but for now just keep it simple. The 3 planes, the eyeball, and the circumcision. Next up, we got the looking up. As I said before, just try to show more of the bottom part of the eyelid and less of the top. And that's actually gonna push the top eyelid, and you're gonna see a lot more of this bottom plane. So on this side, I have the bottom plane of the top eyelid, and on the other side, I actually have the upper eyelid, which is gonna be this right here. And usually I'll just draw one to make it look more aesthetic. So choose bottom or top. Then we have looking down, which is pretty much gonna be the opposite, and the top eyelid is gonna be rotating the opposite way, which is really gonna show you a lot more of this top plane of the bottom eyelid. And what people don't understand is really the mapping out of the form. And what that means is that this plane is going to be going this direction, then it's going to turn, and then on the bottom you're going to have the bow, which is actually going to have a mapping of its own. So when you draw these planes, you really need to think about the mapping, and that this is going to be going this direction, and then this is going to be going the opposite. If you just draw the eye like this, I don't think even Google Maps can save you. I'm not really sure what this angle is called, but let's just call it what the fuck you doing over there. And this one is interesting because it looks like this, and it looks like it actually doesn't have any planes, but even this can be actually exaggerated into 2 separate straight lines. And also make sure that you're always looking for these diagonals so you can really create some form and not just some Egyptian eye. Then we have closed eyes, which are extremely fucking easy. You just have an eyeball, a curvy line going across it, and then just some fucking eyelashes. And when you're drawing the eyelashes, make sure you actually combine them into this one big shape. Don't just draw them like this. This is not a fucking sunflower. And usually the furthest eyelash is gonna be the biggest, so I actually separate that, and then I just combine the rest. And then it actually thins out to the end, and then you have the tear duct. And make sure you draw the eyelashes with actually triangles. So this shape, not just some curves looking like spaghetti and shit. Then we have the closed profile, which is again gonna be an eyeball, a curve around it with some eyelashes, and then you find where the top eyelid is gonna be, and you use a lot more curves. Finally, we have eyes with no upper eyelid. Oh Jesus, this can get racist real quick, but we taking it very slow. Nobody's offended. I'm not saying that they're different in any way, shape, or form. actually they are a little different. It's pretty much the same with all the planes, but instead of the upper eyelid, I'm looking for this subtle line right here, which is really gonna show you the eyeball. And then I make this line thicker because the skin is gonna be covering a part of the eye, and there's gonna be a lot more shadow. Again, you don't need to draw eyelashes individually, just combine them. Especially for males, you don't wanna make them fabulous. But even if I'm drawing females, I'm still combining them into little triangles, and then I just draw a couple individually. But as with anything else, I advise you to first practice only with males because they have a lot more structure, and then when you understand that, you never fucking draw males again. So these are all the different angles that I could think of, and I've put all of them in a PSD that you can download for free so you can cheat next time you're drawing eyes. And as with any other tutorial that I do, my next video is gonna be a critique / roast. So do some studies of eyes or portraits, and then you go to my Discord channel, group, whatever the fuck it's called, link in the description, and you go to Your Art Sucks, you post your shit right there, you write me something, and then I help you or make fun of you. Also, if you're serious about learning how to draw, you know I act all goofy and shit on YouTube for the views, but I'm actually really serious about teaching this portrait shit, so make sure you check out my Patreon, patreon.com/angelganef. I do longer in-depth tutorials, time lapses. I even posted a time lapse of how I draw these eyes for today, but most importantly, I do a critique live stream every single week where I go over your work and I tell you exactly what you need to be doing. So make sure you check it out and support me, patreon.com/angelganef, because I need to buy a fucking couch. So that's it for this tutorial. Make sure you download PSD, post on Discord, pay on Patreon, and suck dick right here. Love you!